Hey, what's happening, everyone? My name is Mike, and this is the Bored Cyborg. Welcome back to another episode of What I've Watched, which is a series where I basically catalog the films that I watch each week and go over them one by one, give my thoughts about them, any information that I have about them, and just kind of talk about them a bit. Today is a holiday-ish themed episode. Ho ho ho, motherfuckers! So let's dig right in. The Christmas spirit struck me like a lightning bolt last week, and I decided to start off the season with my favorite action movie of all time, as well as my favorite Christmas movie of all time, and that is Die Hard, starring Bruce Willis. Die Hard is quintessential action filmmaking. It's one of my favorite films of all time. It's number 3 right now, sitting comfortably behind Blade Runner and The Thing. I watch Die Hard at least twice a year, usually 2 times in December and once in the middle of the year somewhere, and it never gets old. Every time I watch it, I glean something new from it. I notice something different. This time around, I noticed how absent Bruce Willis is from action scenes, and what I mean by that is he's in them just enough, but his stuntman put in work. But it's shot so well, edited perfectly, and executed to the T, so it doesn't matter. Only somebody that's watched the film hundreds of times like I have would pick up on something like that. One day I'm going to do more of a tribute episode to Die Hard, the greatest action film ever made. And for those of you that don't think that this is a Christmas film, you're wrong. Die Hard takes place on Christmas Eve. There's a Christmas tree in it. The score is laden with sleigh bells and even little Christmas melodies hidden in there if you really listen closely. And it's capped off with a great version of Let It Snow. So if that ain't a Christmas film, I don't know what is. I am going to be watching Die Hard 2 at some point this season, since that's another one I watch every single year around this time, because it does take place during Christmas as well. So that's Die Hard, and this is the 25th anniversary Blu-ray collection that has Die Hard 1 through 4. It does not have the 5th film because I refuse to have that piece of shit in my collection. It exists, but not in my world. Die Hard. Best Christmas movie ever. Best action movie ever. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. The next film that I watched is one of my childhood favorites. I understand and realize that it's not a perfect film, but I adore it. It's nostalgia heavy for me, and I watch this one probably around once a year. That is Super Mario Bros., the first video game to live-action film adaptation. I did not, however, watch it on my beautiful Second Sight steelbook here. I actually saw it in the theater. I live close to Raleigh, North Carolina, and they usually have get-togethers for obscure films, cult films, and they actually had one at a museum for Super Mario Bros. The movie. So a buddy of mine and I went to go check it out, and it was great seeing it on the big screen. They also had some props set up near the front door. Not a crazy amount of props, but, you know, some things from the movie. It had the Japanese poster, which was really cool, and I wanted it. And the awesome thing about going to see this in the theater was following the film, they had a live Q&A with about 6 people that worked on the film. Now, they weren't big people that worked on the film. It wasn't the directors or writers or anything like that, the production designers. But it did have one of the people that worked on the special effects, in particular on the fungus. It had somebody that played a Goomba. It had one of the kidnapped Brooklyn girls. It was awesome seeing them talk about the film and getting some insight from them about what it was like on set, because we've all heard the stories. And I actually stood up and asked a question, a very particular question. I basically asked the panel if they had any stories about working with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, any stories, insight, anecdotes, things like that. I did that for a very particular and specific reason. I wanted to invoke some talk about them being drunk on the set. I've read countless times in multiple places that they were loaded up on whiskey while filming this because the shoot was a disaster, and I really wanted to invoke some of that chatter, some of that gossip from the panel. And luckily, one of the gentlemen who played a Goomba started talking about the on-set alcoholism. He didn't go too much into depth, but it was perfect, and it's exactly what I wanted to invoke from the panel. He basically confirmed that there was a lot of drinking on the set. They were all talking about Dennis Hopper not showing up for the majority of the time. That's right, they also had Dennis Hopper's stand-in. It was really cool to listen to them talk about the film, and it was great seeing Super Mario Bros. The movie on the big screen. That is that. Love this movie. It ain't perfect, but It's special, and I think it's an underrated dark fantasy film from the 90s. Check it out. The next thing I watched was actually on Netflix. Now, I am fascinated with all things nature, all forms of life, so I decided to watch an episode of Blue Planet 2. I watched the episode that focused on the deep. I always love these episodes because it's like a science fiction film, but it's reality. We're seeing these alien creatures that very few people have ever seen. In this case, some creatures that nobody has ever seen. Essentially, we follow this submersive, thick-glassed, submarine kind of vessel that traverses the deepest parts of the ocean that we've been in, and also along some of the seabeds and the ocean beds. And it follows these utterly alien creatures throughout their everyday lives, completely blown away, completely swept away by the visuals. David Attenborough's sultry, endearing, and nurturing voice and narration always brings these nature documentaries to another level. There's nothing like it. He is perfect for this. He's a naturalist, and he knows what he's talking about, and the way he presents everything is just magical. And it also makes me weep like a little boy at points. Especially in this episode, towards the end, they start discussing the possible origins of life. Deep in the ocean, amidst these mountainous ranges, are these huge geysers that spew hydrogen and methane, and a lot of scientists agree that this may have been where life began. And while this was all happening, I just completely lost it, got super emotional, because there's nothing more beautiful than life on this planet to me. And it's a very special documentary, nature documentary. If you guys haven't seen the Planet Earth series, anything by BBC that David Attenborough's involved in is fantastic and mesmerizing and beautiful. Check out Blue Planet 2, especially the episode called The Deep. You will be blown away, I guarantee it. And the next thing that I watched was yet another Christmas film. I guess a more Christmassy film than Die Hard, admittedly. And that was Mickey's Christmas Carol. Now, I haven't seen Mickey's Christmas Carol since I was very, very young. It's been at least 2 decades. And this is a wonderfully succinct adaptation of the Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. You have Scrooge McDuck playing, obviously, Scrooge, and the animation is beautifully hand-drawn. This adaptation is a short film, so it's around 23-24 minutes long, but it perfectly tells the story. It didn't need any less or any more time, and I couldn't be more happy with this film. I think this is a perfect adaptation of The Christmas Carol, and one of the best that is available. And I'm not going to really talk about the Christmas Carol story because everyone knows it. It's still an effective story, it still holds up, and it still rings true for the times that we live in, and I think it always will. I think it's one of the most human stories out there, about greed and about love and about what's really important in this life. So check out Mickey's Christmas Carol. It's a wonderful, like I said, condensed adaptation of Charles Dickens' classic novel, and you can't go wrong with Mickey's Christmas Carol. Came out in 1983. This 30th anniversary edition here, released by Disney, also has a handful of short films. Some of them are Christmas related, some of them are just winter related and have snow in them, so I guess they decided to throw them on here. The first one I checked out was a 6-minute short starring Goofy called The Art of Skiing, where a yodeler and a narrator essentially narrate Goofy getting out of bed one morning and hitting the slopes, but he has no idea what he's doing. And obviously, it's very goofy. It's a goofy little animated short, and there's really not much else that could be said about it. Definitely check it out. It's a solid one, and that one came out in the early 40s, I believe 1941, and it still has unbelievable hand-drawn animation that you would think was from 20-30 years ago. It's that damn good. So that was The Art of Skiing. The next one I checked out, I might as well talk about all the ones that I watched that were on this set, was Pluto's Christmas Tree. Now, this one nostalgically punched me right in the face because I hadn't seen this since I was probably 6 or 7, definitely in my single digits. I had completely forgotten about this short. It stars Mickey, Pluto, and Chip and Dale. I believe they were called Chip and Dale at that point. It came out in 1952, and it follows Mickey cutting down a tree with Pluto, bringing it into the house, and decorating it. But little do they know that Chip and Dale have taken up residence in the tree, and they make Pluto's life a living hell. It's wonderful. Watching it just brought back so many memories of where I was when I had first seen it. One of those moments where you're watching a film that you had completely forgotten about, you thought it was erased from your mind, and all these little scenes happen where you're like, oh, I remember that, and it was just so nostalgic. That was Pluto's Christmas Tree. Like I said, guys, this is the 30th anniversary edition. This is a great little set. It has about an hour's worth of content. You're not getting too much content here, but what you're getting is remarkable. Top of the line animation. Love Mickey's Christmas Carol and the shorts that are on here. Oh, and check out the Die Hard Ugly Christmas sweater, baby. Yeah, now I've got a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. It's got Nakatomi. It's got walkie-talkies and stuff. It's got fucking AK-65s. The greatest Christmas sweater of all Christmas sweaters. The granddaddy of ugly Christmas sweaters. I love this sweater so much that I own it twice. So next I decided to delve into the Christmas horror realm. And I watched a proposed classic that Scream Factory put out this year, earlier in the year, and that was Silent Night, Deadly Night. I had not seen this film up to this point, and I was expecting for it to be a damn good Christmas horror film. And I don't know, I ended up coming out of it just thinking it was basically an average slasher. Now, the first half of the film I loved. It basically follows a young boy who witnesses his family being brutally murdered and his mother getting raped. Merry Christmas. And it follows him throughout his childhood where he gets placed into a Christian orphanage of some sort, I suppose, that's run by a tyrannical nun, and also a nicer nun, who essentially is the Dr. Loomis of this film. The first half is really good, a lot of great build-up and showing, some character development with the kid and what really kind of f***ed him up in the head. And the second half of the film essentially settles on him as an 18-year-old kid, and he works at like a small toy store, and he's forced by his boss, well, not forced, but he's asked by his boss to don a Santa Claus outfit and greet all the children and yada yada yada. So he does, and something triggers in his mind that makes him go insane, pick up an axe and start murdering everybody, Michael Myers style. The second half just essentially is a Halloween clone. Like I said, the nice nun lady is essentially Dr. Loomis. She's warning everybody about the dangers of letting him wear a Santa Claus costume and how he could be triggered from all the negative memories. And it has some good gore effects for the time. Unfortunately, the extended scenes, this is the extended version, and the extended scenes are in VHS quality. I understand why they are. I wish they weren't, but it is what it is. It's the best it's gonna be. And the gore effects are pretty good for the time. There's some really funny kills. Linnea Quigley actually pops up in an early role. This film came out in 1984, so this was definitely one of her earliest horror film roles. But yeah, just kind of falls into standard, mediocre, average slasher territory. Now, I do love the intro sequence where Billy and his family are visiting his hospitalized grandfather, who is just way off the deep end, essentially catatonic. When his parents leave the room, the grandfather turns to the little boy and starts scaring the shit out of him, talking about how Santa's gonna punish all naughty boys. And it's a very tense and memorable scene that totally grabbed my attention. It does have the Christmas theme going for it, and I still enjoyed it. So that is Silent Night, Deadly Night. Now I need to watch the rest of the franchise, which I believe is 5 films at this point. And there's one directed by Brian Yuzna, which I definitely want to see because I love Yuzna as a director. I love Society and a lot of the films that he's done. Bride of Reanimator. Alright, so the next film I watched was yet another adaptation of A Christmas Carol. Another film that I hadn't seen since I was very, very young. I've seen parts of it over the years on television with the family, things like that, but I hadn't sat down and watched it since I was probably in my early teens or a kid. That film is The Muppet Christmas Carol, released by Disney. And again, I'm not going to delve into the story of A Christmas Carol, but I want to talk about the film a little bit and what I really love about this. Michael Caine plays Scrooge, and his transformation is fantastic. He does a wonderful job in the role. This story always gets me towards the end when Scrooge is a new man, essentially. Pretty much all of the other main characters are Muppets, Kermit, Gonzo, Rizzo the Rat. Him and Gonzo have some amazing back and forth banter. Gonzo essentially plays Charles Dickens, and he narrates the film by breaking the fourth wall, talking to the audience. Him and Rizzo the Rat have some great dialogue between each other. There's actually a scene that totally cracked me up that I completely had forgotten about, where Rizzo the Rat impromptu kisses Gonzo on the nose in perfect timing. It was just such a random little moment, and it just made me laugh out loud, rolling on the floor. This is another magical version of A Christmas Carol, and the puppetry and the puppet design is fantastic. The Ghost of Christmas Past is this ethereal, angelic puppet that sort of floats all over the place, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful design. I'm not sure how they accomplished it. And I also love the Ghost of Christmas Present and the Ghost of Christmas Future. The Ghost of Christmas Future was really cool. It was basically a hooded, cloaked Grim Reaper type of character that glides along, and really, really cool stuff. Great puppetry, of course. And that's really all I can say about The Muppet Christmas Carol. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out, especially if you're a fan of the Muppets. This film came out in 1992. It holds up remarkably well, and I would definitely say that this is one of the best versions of the Christmas Carol. I prefer the Mickey's Christmas Carol because it's just a perfectly succinct version of it, but this, if you want to get a fuller version of the story, definitely check out the Muppets And that's pretty much it for the films that I watched last week. In the comments below, let me know if you've seen any of these films and what your favorite Christmas film is. I'd love to hear. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as well as the little bell for notifications so that you can be notified when I do release a new video. My voice kind of cracked there. Anyways, guys, I will see you next time. Enjoy the holidays with your family and loved ones. That's what this holiday season is all about. It's not about getting gifts or buying people things. It's about enjoying the time that you have with your family. We're only here for a little while, so enjoy it while you can. Just spread love, homies. Merry Christmas! Happy Hanukkah! Happy Kwanzaa! And every other holiday that people celebrate. Thank you all for watching. I will see you next time. Bored Cyborg out. An ill reindeer!